for everyone to have gathered today. My name is Michael Diamond. I'm the Academic Director of the Integrated Marketing and Communications Department here at the School of Professional Studies within our Division of Programs in Business. And it's my distinct pleasure to welcome Steve Tomasco to our community. Steve is the VP of Marketing and Communications at IBM Research. I am singularly interested in what IBM Research does with over 3,000 professionals in the space of research. It's probably one of the largest collections of researchers outside of a university. And I think we've already conjured in our mind these images of, the Big Bang Theory and all these brilliant brainiacs running around. So we're absolutely fascinated to learn more about the activities of IBM in the space, and more importantly, the role that the head, the chief of communications and marketing, plays to disseminate knowledge and ideas and thought leadership in this space. So very delighted about that. Of course, it also gives us a distinct pleasure or opportunity to thank Professor George Benaroya again, who's been leading this series and curating this series around global growth, inviting some extraordinary speakers into his classroom, sharing with his students not just his passion and love of finance, but also, a real example about leadership and, tapping into some of the really great minds and thinkers who are right there at the coalface of leading businesses, especially in the space of communications and marketing. So I can do no better a job than actually turn over the baton to George. And I'll let George take it from here. So everyone, many thanks for joining. And if I forget at the end, I want to thank especially Patrick Brady and Robin Smith, who have made this event today successful and are working the controls in the background. If you have any questions along the way, please use the Q&A panel below. We have sort of some formal time of presentation, and then we'll come back to questions. If you have your own Q&As, please pop them in with the little speech bubbles at the bottom of your screen, and we'll try and work on any that come through or pick them up after the webinar. So.
Super. Thanks so much, Michael. For those I don't know yet, I'm George Benaroya. During the day, I work as a CFO. I started my career at Procter & Gamble, then Tetra Pak Media, and now in private equity. Now, once per week, I get to do something I love, and that is to teach this class. Let me explain what's happening. You've joined a real class going on now live at NYU's School of Professional Studies. We're not actors. And what we do in this class is the first session, students pick a company, any company that they want, and they pick IBM. And then each week, we learn about finance by having students make business decisions. First, headcount. How would you propose to your boss at IBM the recommendation so that you can get more headcount for your department? This is how Julia did it. She looked first at the revenue over the last 2 years, and then the options that IBM has. Melody went one by one and tried to find a reason or a rationale and the numbers behind her recommendation. There are no right or wrong numbers per se in this class. What we do is we try to use numbers in a meaningful way to persuade others. So what Yushan did is she went and looked into real life cases of deals that IBM got to do that. Today in the US, we have problems in supply chain. What would you do if you don't have enough product to sell? Would you prioritize old clients or new clients? This is how Amy did it. I've been teaching this class now for 2 years, and before the pandemic, about 1/2 of the students will prioritize new clients to get their business. But during the pandemic, no one did. How do you increase prices and deal with inflation? Ihan recommended an overall 2% price increase, but in some cases it was a decrease. How do you explain the price increase to clients? This is how Kristen did it. And when I look at this letter, it looks so real that I'm tempted to call on that phone number. What do you do if your clients reject the price increase? We learn all this in class. And then the final step is to invite these executives from these companies to tell us how they do it in real life. And today we have with us Steve Tomasko, Vice President, Marketing and Communications, IBM. Now, I like to make presentations a bit more personal. And what is really interesting about Steve is that prior to this role, he was also in charge of getting communications for sales and cybersecurity. He worked in corporate communications, but as Michael mentioned, today he works with 3,000 researchers who get more patents than anyone else, any other company in the US. So it's a fascinating job because he's got innovation, research, and communications. Please join me to welcome Steve Tomasko.
Hey everybody, thank you so much. I'm thrilled to be here and to talk to your class. I'd love to see the end results of your work and the recommendations you are going to make about IBM. I'm sure we could maybe use a couple of the tips you guys are thinking about. So yeah, let's dive in. George, what can I kick off first here?
So, what I thought is that maybe the first question will be, let me show you the background for those who don't know the rest of the material. So IBM Research gets more patents than any other company here in the US. Go back to US companies, more than Microsoft, Apple, and Amazon combined. And it's not just in the US. IBM Research also gets patents in a number of countries. It's quite impressive. Now, in general, when we think about researchers, or people in finance for that matter, we say, well, it's good for them to learn, communications and so on. But how about the other way around? What can someone working in sales, marketing, or communications learn from researchers?
Yeah, how about because you brought the patents up, let's talk about innovation as a whole and how we think about innovation. Because, patents are really just, one small piece of innovation. And it's a way to protect your IP and to, use it for the future. But the real innovation is, it's all about building like what's next, what's coming around the corner. And that's where the research division is really focused. So but it's not just building it, it's making sure that there's a path to market for it. So what we do at IBM Research is we're the organic growth engine for the company. We create new technologies that are going to fuel our company for the future. So that's one piece of what we do. The second piece is that we literally build the future of computing, right? We're looking out, the horizons that we look out 10, 20 years from now, we are thinking about and building those things now. So our clients, ourselves, we can benefit that in the future. So you see, when you divide it up, we have sort of these horizons of work, like 1 to 2 years impact, 3 to 5, 5 and 10, 10 and beyond, right? And that's why we have 3,000 researchers across the entire globe working on a variety of topics, whether it's AI, hybrid cloud, cryptography, physical sciences, like the physicality, the nanotubes, everything you're thinking about that goes to the microscopic level. Like we are working on that today. But all for a purpose, right? We're not a university, we're a for-profit company. And, we're focused on like really bringing those innovations to our clients and bring them to life, right? I mean, the modern technology world is based on innovations that IBM has built, right? Whether it's the mainframe, storage, memory, all of that, everything in your phones today was probably patented or built somewhere in IBM. And the new version of that is what we're working on today. So everything we're doing today has an eye towards application. And I think that's a very important point around innovation. You can innovate in a vacuum, but if you don't have a path to market, then it doesn't really benefit your company or really anybody. So I think that's a very important point I just wanted to bring out, because our goal is progress. We really believe in the application of intelligence, science, and reason to make progress for our company and also for society. We think IBM plays a unique role in taking on big, grand challenges, and we have a lot of those challenges today. So we're really hard at work at innovating new types of technologies that are going to take those on.
Thanks, Steve. Angela?
Hi, Steve. I'm Angela. And my question for you is, how does IBM adapt its marketing strategies and communications at a time when everything in the world is constantly changing?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, I'll do twofold. I think for IBM, and I'm so glad you guys chose IBM as a company, and I'm sure you've kind of, maybe you didn't know that much about it when you started, but now you kind of understand the role of the company in business and in society. It's kind of eye-opening how much IBM actually does. But I think the challenge for us in a marketing brand standpoint is, I think people have kind of lost what IBM does and what we stand for, because we don't make consumer products. So from a brand marketing standpoint, it's a real challenge when you're not using one of our devices every day, or a laptop, or you're not on a social media site. Those companies by default become the tech companies, right? But there's different types of tech. And tech is almost a bad word these days, right? I mean, there's all these bad actors that don't have the same type of, character and values that our company does. But we work on the tech that is fundamental to computing, right? The stuff that's really hard to build, right? Like the innovations in semiconductors, quantum computing, AI, like that's the type of stuff we focus on. So from a marketing standpoint, I think it's important to remind people that there are companies that are focused on building, like I said before, like what's next, and taking on these societal challenges. And I'll give you one example. We're very focused on, pushing for investment in science, R&D, and skills. And, we launched this initiative last year called Science Forward, as the new administration came in, to really advocate exactly for that, right? It advocate for new partnership models around science that would bring people together to solve big problems like climate change, right? To really push forward, how you think about science. And we did it because we're really at a tipping point in what we need to do. Like, there are technological solutions to a lot of these problems, but no one company, no one institution, no one government is going to be able to do it by itself. And IBM kind of has that ability to convene people together. And a lot of the conversations we have today are about that, right? We talk to governments, we talk to our clients, we talk to even our partners to solve big problems. Last year when the pandemic was raging, our leader for IBM Research spearheaded with Amazon, with Google, with the White House, pulling together what came to be the COVID-19 High Performance Computing Consortium. And what that did, it allowed any researcher to have access to the most supercomputing power ever assembled on the history of the planet to help solve what was going on with COVID, right? To help model it, to help, watch it spread. Like that's amazing, right? And they set it up in a week, right? Because everyone dropped the red tape. Everyone was like, yes, we need to do this. So what that proved to us is that there is a model for doing this, right? Whether it's climate change or you name the problems, it can be done. We just have to drop the red tape and actually get it done. But we feel like we are the company that can help drive that with others. But that's the type of mindset you have to have. Look, we're still a for-profit company. There's things underneath this where we will make money, but if we don't solve these problems, then we're all not going to be in a good spot. So, we have a very big focus on that from a company standpoint.
Super. Thanks so much, Steve. Dylan, go next.
Hello, Steve. I'm asking a question on behalf of someone who couldn't be here today. The question is as follows. Why does IBM seem silent compared to other big companies? IBM doesn't launch campaigns with superstars, actors, or singers, and this person doesn't see many advertisements for IBM here in New York City.
Well, we have a very specific, advertising. I mean, I don't run advertising, but I know enough about it to say that, we have certain audiences we try to reach, but which is mainly, to date, it's been a lot of C-suite audience. And we do very specific targeted advertising and marketing towards that. I think it does. I mean, the general question comes a little bit back to what I said before is how do people think about IBM? And we are actually very in tune with the idea that we need to be out there a little bit more aggressively from a marketing and advertising campaign, showing up on different platforms in different spaces, because I think, we actually have probably the youngest population in our history in IBM today, but no one would actually know that. And it's very important that we capture the hearts and minds and how people think about IBM for everyone that's your age and even younger. So there's going to be a concerted effort, even probably in the beginning of next year, to really take that on in a more cohesive way. But I'd also say that the tech companies that and this is just sort of more of a question, is why do we think that a company like Google is innovative? I mean, what do they actually? I mean, Google itself, what do they really do that's innovative? I mean, you can search on it; they have a lot of great stuff, but okay, so I found a pizza place that's 2 blocks away. That's one definition of innovation, but we just created the smallest semiconductor the world has ever seen. That's going to give future devices like 400 times battery power in the future. That's kind of innovative. So but to your point about marketing, it's we're doing that, but nobody knows it. Google's just innovative because they're Google. It's a huge challenge, and it's not just, there's not one answer. I think it's it also has to do with where we're at as a company. We've gone through a transformation. We now have a new CEO. We're headed on this path to growth, and with growth comes an ability to talk about other things that you do. I forget who told me this, but when you're not growing, the only thing you can talk about is how you get back to growth. When you're growing a little bit, you can start to talk about the trends kind of in your industry or other industries. When you're growing like a rocket ship, you can talk about anything you want, right? And you see that, right? I mean, look at Amazon, look at these Bezos or Musk. Their companies are doing so well. They're you know what? I'm making electric cars, but I'm also going to space. It's pretty amazing to watch how how they just continue to just grow and do new things. But we're on this path of growth where we're going to really start to talk about a lot of things we're doing.
Thanks. Dakota, you want to go next?
Hi, Steve. I'm also asking a question on behalf of someone. My name is Jakarla Mitchell, and my colleague's question is, what challenges did you encounter educating customers about the benefits of IBM research?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we did a brand study last year because we were looking at how people think about that and think about IBM research. And what we found is that, this goes back to the other question too, people IBM research as a brand, people thought was innovative, but they didn't think IBM was innovative. So there's a missing connection point that needs to happen, where we start talking more about IBM research just as IBM, right? And even the work itself, it is integrated under the covers, but our clients aren't feeling it, they don't see it, or they don't necessarily think our products are cutting edge necessarily. Not everyone, I'm just saying generally. But so there's a lot of effort behind the scenes to draw out, from lab to product and make sure people really understand, what we're doing in the lab, how it's cutting edge, because it absolutely is cutting edge. There's no area in technology today where our researchers aren't at the top, not one. I would take anybody on in that respect. I mean, I've seen it, I know it, but does that translate then to our product, and does that translate to the customer's minds when they're making decisions? And in some cases it does, but I think we have a lot more work to do there. And it's something, as we roll out more of our marketing and brand work, we're going to do even more of. I mean, we have a great example of it. A couple of years ago, I don't know if any of you guys saw this, but we had an AI system that could debate humans, right? And a lot of the technologies underneath it are now in our Watson product portfolio. And our Watson product portfolio and everything we do around natural language processing is some of the best stuff that's in the market today. So that's a really good example of how we showcased it from a PR and marketing standpoint. We did we debated a human and made a big deal about it. And then we had a path to market. So more of those things, like that's the type of stuff we love to work on and that we're trying to do more of. But those things don't necessarily just grow on trees. A talking AI machine that can beat a human in a debate, but we're working on them. So it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, that is an excellent example, Steve. I think it's 400,000 articles and like 10 billions of pieces of data. It's amazing. But you would like to go next? Yeah.
Hi, Steve. I'm Chen Yu. And my question is, did the pandemic bring challenges to communication department? And what did you do about it? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it really did. I mean, you guys lived it too. I mean, it changed everybody's lives. And I think in the beginning, what we were really focused on was making sure that, all our employees, that we talked to them all the time, that we really were there for them throughout, everything that was going on, because it was a very scary time. It still is. And I think it really hit home in terms of how to be more empathetic with the work situation. Work we put aside. Now, did we still work? Of course we did. But it no longer became the number one thing, at least on my mind. It became more, I think it helped bring us together even more, because we were all in it together, and we were all looking out for each other. Now, when it came to the work of IBM, we quickly went into the mode of, okay, well, we have to help our clients, right? And we're going to help our clients, move from like, not digital to digital right away. Like IBM was ready. Like we were on, WebEx or Zooms already and having meetings. Like we're a global company. That's just, we turned on the dime, right? But our clients weren't all like that. Everyone had a different level of working. And from a communication standpoint, we did a ton of communications. We had, sort of 24/7 teams kind of working through how to help our clients communicate, like what we were doing, and then how IBM technologies could actually help, address the issues around the pandemic, like I said, with the HPC consortium. So it was sort of two levels, helping our clients and then actually, figuring out what IBM solutions can help take on COVID. It was quite a whirlwind and somewhat exhausting, but also so worthwhile, the work we did, because we knew we were helping people.
Super, thanks for that, Stephen. Let me explain the way we do this. So anyone can ask questions, right? Anyone from anywhere in the world. We have some, students reading questions from all the students, but we also got students in Asia who send questions, and I tell them, listen, don't stay awake, go to sleep. You got to go to school tomorrow. They'll get the recording. But we're going to play two of those questions. And Patrick, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Viraj. I'm 16 years old and I live in India. And my question to you, Steve, is how important is spreading a social message in our marketing strategy?
So I think by social message, he probably means, how your company interacts with, the biggest issues in society. I think IBM has always been an advocate for social issues from our founding, and it's a core value for who we are as a company. And whether it's like the advocacy that we've done around the bathroom bills in Texas, whether it's facial recognition and how we are advocating and we got out of it, but also how we're advocating for its how it's used, or like I said, around sustainability and all of these issues around climate change and what we're going to do there. It's you cannot separate the social issues from your business strategy anymore. And I think it's a core for how we think about our business strategy and how we even develop technologies, because it's not just affecting us, it affects all of our clients. And we're here to solve problems for our clients too. And I think it's front and center for how we operate.
Super, thanks for that, Stephen. Patrick, would you like to go to the next one?
Hi, my name is Julia. I'm 14 years old and I live in Singapore. My question for you, Steve, is how does IBM utilize digital marketing to target its B2B customers? And why is IBM on TikTok? Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you guys, I'm going to be honest, I'm not on TikTok. So I had to actually, I didn't have to ask. I mean, I know enough about TikTok, but the reason we're on TikTok is because, we are constantly, like, before social was social, we were always exploring new ways to spread our message and to engage with our future employees, our current employees, and go where the conversation is. And if the conversation is on TikTok, we're going to go there. And I think, we want to talk about innovation on TikTok. We want to talk about science on TikTok. We want to engage and get people excited about this so they consider IBM in the future. So, we're definitely not opposed to, I know we have this sort of older sort of feel, but you'd be surprised. I mean, there's so many just IBMers that are out there doing really, really cool stuff. And, we have, IBMers all over the globe that are participating in all these different social forums. In terms of digital marketing, B2B, I mean, we just have, we're really plugged into, how that operates and how it runs. And, again, I'm not in the middle of the digital marketing efforts, but it's substantial. And, I think that's how most marketing operates today, is through digital. So a lot of everything we do is kind of geared around digital.
Super, thanks, Steve.
Hi, Steve. My name is Xin Yu, and I'm asking, what's the communication strategy of IBM research different from other IBM departments?
Okay. So what I would say is that in our communications function, it's not necessarily different. We run campaigns. The easiest way to think about it is a political campaign, and you have a platform, and you then you reach your different audiences through different tactics, but you run it over a period of time, and you got to win the election. So we're using metrics, we're assessing things, we're changing tactics as we need to, but we're very aggressive in terms of how we tell stories. And the great thing about our team is that we're a big company, but the communications team is very integrated, and we operate as like one big team. I own innovation, and someone else owns AI and cloud, but like we talk so much, it's like we know what we're thinking, what everybody's thinking. So it's very integrated in how we do our storytelling and how we do our campaigns. There's different leads for different initiatives, right? But so that's why it's not a different type of strategy. I think I have the great honor and opportunity to work on really, really cool stuff. So that's what's different about it. And that's why it's so exciting. I also take a tact of experimentation. I like to try new and different things, and I challenge my teams to come up with new ideas all the time, because I'm not necessarily tied to a product, right? I don't have to announce a product that is launching on X date and it has all these features. Like, I'm trying to build belief, right? Belief in the company and innovation. And that's a different type of thing to do, right? It's not about widgets and numbers and, how fast something is. And, that's something that's unique about IBM. We've always been kind of defined by what we believe and not by what we sell. That's why we've been able to last so long. Like, we started, the story, we started selling cheese slicers in 1902 or whatever it is. Like, if we defined ourselves by cheese slicers, we wouldn't be here, right? Everybody has products. And, everyone has AI and everyone has cloud. But like, what do you actually, and they can be this much different. But how do people think about you? How do they feel about your company? How do they feel about the IBMer that's standing in front of them? Are they the expert in the room? And that's where the research team comes in, because they are the experts in the room. So for me, it's about building this idea of leadership through building that idea of belief through innovation. And that's a little bit of different kind of tactical things that we do to build that thought leadership out there.
Super, thanks so much. It's definitely super cool, the projects that you work on. I like that one, to debate with AI. So go ahead.
Good evening, Steve. First of all, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us. My name is Dana. My question for you today is, what is the culture of the research department? Thank you.
Yeah, so the research division, it's the researchers themselves. They are literally some of the smartest people in the world. And they, as scientists, they question everything, right? They question, everything we do. And when you're a communications person talking to these folks, they don't necessarily understand communications or marketing, but, they have a healthy respect for it. And the conversations we have with them is about helping them translate the work they do into something more people are going to understand. And, I have spent, the culture is a good one. It's collegial, it's team oriented. And also you have to give certain people space to kind of go off and tinker and, do the beautiful mind thing that they need to do. But it's also, it is integrated. And from a communication standpoint, our job is to spend time with these folks, understanding their work, but then also helping them translate it. Because you can do all this great work, but if we can't talk about it to the outside world in a way that people will understand, then it's all for naught. So a lot of our job is almost like being a reporter and coaching them and helping them. And it can be intimidating sometimes because this person, I've been doing this for a really long time, and I'll go into someone's office 2 hours later, I won't understand a word they said. But I do know how to tell a story. So I have my own expertise in the right questions that I ask, that I have to get to the end result to make sure, we can tell the story and do our jobs. It's so much fun. It's fascinating to get to know these people. And they really are just brilliant minds, but it doesn't mean they can explain it. That's our job. So it's fun.
Yeah. Patrick, would you play the next question, please?
Hi Steve, my name is Melody, and my question is, what is the most challenging part of managing IBM's intellectual property?
It's a good question. I think it came back to what I said before about patents. I mean, patents are only like one small way to think about innovation, and there's lots of different reasons to patent. But intellectual property they're not exactly the same thing. I mean, patents are one piece of intellectual property. But I think where it gets interesting, I think moving forward is obviously the world of open source, right? And that really changed the way people thought about sort of this walled garden approach to computing and their products. Now, more and more, like the number one operating systems in servers is Linux, right? And, pretty soon the number one, operating system for cloud is going to be Red Hat OpenShift, which is another technology that brings different clouds together. And that's all based on open source technology. Now, open source is, for those who don't know, it's technology that isn't run by one company. It's run by something like the Linux Foundation, where anyone can contribute to it. Now that's a different model, right? You don't have to do all of that hard work yourself. You can actually tap into these open source communities, but then you need to productize it. You need to get it enterprise ready. And I think that's sort of one path towards intellectual property. But then there's also protecting intellectual property from, the other areas in AI and, in quantum. But more and more companies are going to be open about what they work on and share technology. And the winners will be sort of the ones that are able to build on top of that. So the dynamic is changing. Like, our goal is not to really be the number one patent company anymore. We are going to be we're super focused about the areas that we are going to patent, but we're not just going to patent everything, right? We have to focus on the areas of that are directly related to our strategy. So it's shifting. It's definitely a shifting area, and I think we're headed in the right direction there.
Great point. Thanks, Ruby.
Hi, Steve. My name is Ruby. My question for you is, what does innovation mean at IBM? And could you share some innovation initiatives? Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, but I said this a little earlier. I think innovation is all about building what's next and then applying that to make progress, right? And for us, the core sort of tenets of IBM Research are AI, cloud, everything we do around innovation in semiconductors and quantum computing, and then exploratory science, that longer term space. And as I was explaining before, there's a whole different set of time horizons for when we see that innovation coming to fruition. There's teams of people that are working on things that in a year will be in a product, but then there's teams of people that are working on things that we don't know when it's going to come to fruition. It's just an idea. But if you reverse it a few, backwards, quantum information theory was, I think 30, 40 years ago was just a pipe dream, right? And even 15 years ago, no one was even thinking about building an actual quantum system like we have today. There's 20 quantum computers in the lab I work at. That was like none of the guys who even work on it thought 10 years ago that would be possible. So it starts with exploratory. Then it gets hardened, and then it's like, boom, it happens, and then it takes off like a rocket ship. And that's where we're at with something like quantum computing today. They're making so much progress. It just in the last 5 years, it's amazing, and we have a long way to go. But it's definitely something that people did not think was going to be here this fast.
Super, thanks for that. Yeah.
Hi, Steve. My name is Itom, and my question for you is, how do you keep being innovative on a daily basis? Thank you.
I didn't quite catch that.
Okay. Yeah. Is that how do you keep being innovative on a daily basis?
Yeah, I think what's key is, from a communications strategy standpoint, is you have to have a plan, and you have to have sort of a goal in mind for where you want to take your plan. And day to day things change, week to week things change, priorities can change. But at the end of the day, it's like, what do we want to be known as, right? And if that's your home run or your North Star, whatever you want to call it, then you're going in the right direction. So the hardest thing to do at a big company like ours is to stay focused, right? Stay focused on the task. What is going to benefit the company the most, right? And you can get caught up in having meetings all day, and then all of a sudden you say, what did I actually do today besides sit in meetings? And it's not that the meetings weren't important, they were, right? But are you actually moving the ball forward every single day? What keeps me up at night is my team is one of the best teams in communications overall. I think they're fantastic. And we're doing a great job. I think, we're outstanding. But what keeps me up is this is our campaign. These are all the things we're doing. We're executing. I always ask myself the question, what are we not doing that I haven't even thought of yet? What is the outside in approach that somebody else is coming around, and that's a great idea? What's that next project debater concept that we can really make into a big, big deal? Because we have a lot of the cool technologies in the base to be able to do that. But what is that creative thinking that we need to bring to bear? And we do a lot of work, and we take time to do exercises and things to actually make sure we're spending time doing that. But this is where it comes down to collaborating too. This is why we have agency partners who come in and look at what we're doing and have a fresh perspective. I think that's key, is always being open-minded to having people come in and think differently about what you have to accomplish. Because you can't do it yourself all the time, or you run out of ideas. But we work a lot with our agency partners to make sure we're staying fresh.
Super, thanks for that. And Patrick, should we go to the next question? We just recorded.
Hi, Steve. This is Chien. My question for you is, IBM has more than 3,000 researchers. Is that good or bad for innovation? Thank you.
I think it's imperative for innovation. And the reason I say that is because innovation has no geographic borders, right? And if you only had, if we only had people in New York or people in Silicon Valley, then the only mindset we would get would be that mindset in New York or the Silicon Valley mindset. That's why we're so unique, because we have researchers all over the world from all different types of background with all different types of expertise. And the model we have is to bring all that great knowledge together. And I think it's truly a unique institution, IBM Research, and that's why it's lasted so long. I mean, it's changed too. We've transformed many times, from more just the ivory tower, almost university type of work to being way more integrated into the business. But then also, you always have to keep your eye on the exploratory work. But yeah, I think it's a huge advantage to have, researchers all over the world.
Super, thanks for that, Dylan.
Well, once again, I'm going to be asking a question for someone who's not here today. The question is from Ziyang Zhang, and it is, when an employee has a new idea, how do you guys handle that at IBM? Thanks.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think I don't have a super answer for that. I mean, I think, they usually come in terms of like they have an expertise, they're working on certain types of projects, and, they work with their teams to surface things. There's so many innovative minds that I think, it happens, through their daily work and really just like, their own sort of impetus to push something forward. And I think that is where the opportunity is like you can create what you want here as long as you have the drive to go and do it, right? But we also have a strategy that we hold to. It's not just a free-for-all of ideas, and we have a job to do and innovation projects that we push. I would say that there are no longer like random acts of research, which is something that, yes, it's interesting, yes, someone can work on it, but it's not part of our strategy. And that's key, right? And that's why you probably have seen other research institutions go away, because they were part of a corporation, but they weren't focused on delivering value to that corporation. And that doesn't mean there's not space for exploratory science in R&D, because there always is, but it has to be for a purpose. So I think that's super important.
Super, thanks very much, Steve. Michael, do you have any questions coming through the Q&A that you would like to?
Sure.
Not at this point, but I wonder if I could cheekily, Steve, ask you some questions. We have a lot of keen and earnest students who I'm sure one day would like to be in your spot, running communications or marketing functions at companies like IBM. And I'm always really curious, what do you think, sort of two forms of the question. One is, what do you think are the most important skill sets that, our students should try and develop whilst they're within our programs, our graduate programs? Or put differently, what do you say to yourself, gosh, I wish the universities taught this stuff, before they show up in your office? So, I wonder if you could share any thoughts about that.
Yeah, sure. I think, one of the things that I espouse to do and be, but every day is there's a phrase that one of my former bosses used to use, is that you can't delegate understanding. And what that means is like you can get caught up in like there's a Teams or you're a manager or this or that. But to truly understand something and to then be able to make a communication strategy around it, whatever it is, whether it's a product, whether it's this, whether it's that, like you personally need to spend time understanding it, right? Spend time, be inquisitive, ask questions, but become an expert. You should be just as much of an expert as the executive that you're working with on a technology, a product, a launch. Like you have to go deep into the content itself, because you're responsible for how the world is going to consume that content. And I think that's a lesson I've learned over the years and have tried to pride myself on is I spent a ton of time like just reading, researching, and really like spending time with the research teams, understanding how things work, because it helps me so much to then create a communication strategy or a plan or how we're going to talk to the marketplace about it. That is key, and you either have to want to do that or will yourself to do it, or you're just naturally inquisitive. Like, I mean, I actually can't believe I'm in, working with these people who are so smart. Like I don't have a science or technology background. I was a liberal arts major. I went to, Marist College in Poughkeepsie, New York. And, when I graduated with a communications degree, I wasn't quite sure which direction that was going to go. Right. But I was fascinated by technology always. Right. And I love to go deep, and having that, drive to do that is super important. And then the other skill I think is super important is writing ideas down, writing your business plan down, but being able to put it on a piece of paper. I know that seems like old school. It's important. And whether it's a piece of paper or whatever else you want to use, but people tend to hide behind PowerPoints and presentations and just to mirror like what they actually don't know. But if you can write it down and explain your point of view to people, no matter what profession that you're in, it makes a huge difference. The other piece from a communications standpoint, I think that's important, that I wish I got more training in when I was in school was, just the business side of everything, reading a balance sheet, like understanding why, your CFO or your CEO is doing what they're doing, what the business strategy is. Because if you don't understand that, then you can't make a communication strategy. Like you can do a bunch of random stuff, but if it's not helping add value to the business, then, you're not going to have a seat at the table unless you understand why you're doing what you're doing to make the business more money. So those are the two areas I think are super important.
I think those are phenomenal. I mean, very instructive. I mean, the good news is, you've landed right in the heart of that third thing you mentioned, which is, one of the critical elements of our integrated marketing degree is in fact this finance for marketing decisions course that George leads. And, in the PR program, we have a similar course called Critical Business Skills for, communications professionals. And we look at balance sheets and P&Ls and things like that. I think we couldn't agree with you more. Yeah. George, I'm going to be a little cheeky unless you've got other things lined up. I had a couple more questions. One was, just to build on that a tiny bit, Steve, what is your daily go-to in terms of what do you read? When you wake up in the morning, what's the first thing you're looking at for news or breaking stories or tech relevant things? Or, is there a Twitter feed that you think has been really valuable? We know you're not on TikTok, so perhaps you're not watching the guy dancing in Walmart, but no. What have you found to be sort of nourishing and valuable that our students might want to look at?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm a pretty early riser. I'm up at like 4:30 in the morning every day, and the first thing I do is I start to scan news, and it's everything. So the Times, the Journal, the FT, then all the newsletters that I get in the morning that I subscribe to, whether it's Axios or Punchbowl or Politico. There's a lot of great, The Information is a fantastic reporting technology site that goes deeper on stories. I love Wired as just a general magazine. I get that at my home. I'm just very interested in just how each outlet approaches a story. Like, because I've been doing this for so long, I can never look at a piece of news, a newspaper, or a TV show without dissecting, like, who was the PR person behind that story, right? And why is this the article? And why is this the headline? And, it's just one of those things that becomes, part of you as you do this for a long time. But yeah, I read a lot of different types of things. I couldn't just say there's one to go to. Right. But I would say I still get the New York Times on the weekend at home in the paper. It's actual physical paper to kids, and I read it, and it's great. And my hands get dirty, so try it one time.
Yeah. Well, that sort of probably is a good feed for my last question, actually, Steve, which is, we've had some really interesting speakers, including, the chief communications officer of a very large insurance company. And she made a fascinating observation, which she was talking about how, PR professionals, certainly their business was built on what she called the golden Rolodex, that, you knew who to call to place the story or which journalists to speak to, etc. And as the more she had moved in her context towards CSR and social responsibility, with all the various ratings agencies actually sort of combing through their various, public reports and information, she found that what you now needed was what she called the golden algorithm. So she was sort of saying that now I need to really understand how everybody else is using AI and technology to sort of scan my press releases and codify my, public statements. And so I wondered if you would reflect at all on what, if you've seen the nature of what you do change significantly, like, what do you feel is different in terms of how you do your job or what you need to do your job, over the last, whatever, 5, 10, 15 years?
Yeah, that is a great observation, and it's absolutely true. The way everything was based on, media relationships in the past, and now more and more, like, you question, if you need these outlets as much. I mean, well, they've changed too. I mean, they write stories because they know they're going to get more eyeballs, but that's all part of, the game that we're in now. You need to have the understanding, the analytics behind the scenes, so what stories are going to carry your message into who and to where, and the influencers on all the social platforms. Like, you can really, there's tools you can map all of that, how a story spreads, and we've done it. Like, we used, like, this is years back before TechCrunch was TechCrunch, right? But we would see, like, a story when we placed the story with TechCrunch spread to infinitely more people than any story in the Wall Street Journal, right? And you could watch it spider out as we made the announcement, and we're like, holy moly, like, bring the TechCrunch guy in. It's about, like, who we focus on and understanding that. And then the power of social. I mean, just regular stories, it's all about social and, like, how stories spread, and understanding that is key. But all that said, you need to have that engine. I'm still a firm believer in relationships, and relationships with key outlets, key media. And by relationships, it's like they have a job to do and we have a job to do, but there's a healthy respect and dialogue around, storytelling and, what's actually happening with, any given initiative. But I think that's key. Like, don't hide behind a keyboard. Like, you still have to go out there and meet people. You have to go to events. You have to understand what's going on in the world, and with their jobs, right? Or go to conferences, learning, right? Constantly be learning. And the only way to do that is to get out there and meet people and build those relationships.
Yeah, I love that. I love that very much. I think that's critical advice, and we're hoping to do more of that as we all get back in person.
Yeah, hopefully soon.
Steve, I'm going to turn it back to George. I don't know if you have any sort of concluding comments, George, but I personally want to thank you, Steve, for sharing. It was very, I learned a lot, some good pithy quotes in there, which I'm going to steal with attribution, but some wonderful, some good lines. I think your boss's advice, you can't delegate understanding, is a very insightful observation. So anyway, George, back to you.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. So the last part will be something where I like to thank everyone who made this possible, right? And I guess let me begin with the students, right? This is the last speaker that they're having in this session, on the Friday session for this year. We're having one more speaker in the Wednesday session. So to all the students and also to the coordinators who helped me out, thank you so much. We wouldn't have been able to do it without you guys making this session so much fun. There's also some folks from Weber Shandwick, Larry and Irina. We've been working on this for about 6 months, so that you know. So thanks to both of you for making this possible. And then my colleagues, Robin, who's been promoting this, Patrick's been behind, in the control room, making sure that we run everything well, and Michael, who lets me do all this. And with that, I'll pass it back to Patrick, and maybe he can show a video that students have made to thank Steve.
Hi Steve, I'm really looking forward to your speech. It's my great honor to listen to your presentation on IBM.
Hi Steve, a big shout out to you as I'm very happy that you can come here and share your insights and experiences with us. Thank you for becoming a part of this session.
Hi Steve, this is Gargi from India. First of all, thank you so much for taking out time to guide us and share your insights. We are all fond of IBM as an organization and will always look forward to learn more about marketing and communications from senior executives like you.
Hi Steve, we are really looking forward to your speech. It is definitely a good experience for us to learn more about how IBM sees the future of technology with a science-forward agenda. Thank you so much for your time.
Hi Steve, I am truly honored to be listening to your speech about IBM Spotlight in Innovation. I am truly impressed and thankful that you will be coming to our class at New York University to provide us insights about marketing and communication. I thank you once again for your time and lecture.
All right. And with that, I would like to thank all the other students for the session today. It was real good.
Thank you. That was wonderful. I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much for those kind words. And hey guys, I mean, please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn or send me a message. I'm always happy to, lend a voice, or if you want to talk about the business, I'm happy to do that.